trying to get the guy's name. What was his name again? Mephibosheth. Alright. There you go. So Mephibosheth was someone that he was crippled in his, right? His legs. He was crippled. Adoption. Let me get to the beginning. Number 7. Robin, Shiloh, no. There's a guy named Mephibosheth, Life of David. We got the 2nd Samuel, time we talked about the adoption, the 2nd Samuel, Mephibosheth. What God's grace and what a beautiful picture. So this guy here, I don't know who he is, but know that the little boy Mark just, that was marked, performed the last checkup. I just stopped the video because I couldn't think of Mephibosheth's name. And then what was it? Bezzy, Zeba, ZB, Bezzy, something along the lines. The guy that would lie, the guy that lied about Mephibosheth. I think it was David's, one of his leaders or something. It was something about, it reminded me of like Jesus. Yeah, it reminded me of Jesus and Judas, because we'll just call him Z, because I don't know his other full name. Z in this story, because Mephibosheth was a son of Jonathan, the son of Saul. So he was the grandson of Saul, and David wanted to see if there was one person left to give show grace to in the house of Saul, if there was anybody left. And it was something about this Mephibosheth guy who I don't know if he rode in on a donkey, or he because his legs were, the reason why is because he was crippled in his legs. So the first thing you think of, because he's the one that was dropped. Yeah, that's right. He was dropped at the age of 5, right around the time that, how you start remembering stuff. I don't remember being 5 years old. I remember being 6 years old. I sort of remember my last moments in Florida right before my mom moved me up to Jerusalem or Philadelphia from Lobar. I think it's like the same place Mephibosheth was from, like Bartow, Florida, Lobar, something like that, until the age of 5 years old, then moving up to where, he moved up to Jerusalem, but he was dropped at the age of 5, and I think the nurse or somebody took him, picked him up, or somebody picked him up and ran with him, and then dropped him, and off at the doorstep to a foster home. And I don't know if it's like the handsmaid, whoever it was, took care of the kid once he was 5 years old. And I'm trying to think, what was I doing when I was 5? Well, I don't know. I remember clearly at my grandmom's house on Tacony Street. The house is still there. Nobody lives there. She died years ago. Her name was Butchie. Butchie is a name for a Polish grandmom. She died around 88. To me, she was the meanest mean Jean that I've ever seen, because her name was Jean Kupczynski. Well, first it was Jasinski, Kupczynski, drinking from the cup, Chinsky. I remember moving there, and then that's when my memory clearly started to remember stuff, because I remember I seen on the TV guide the 1982 penny. In 1982, I was 6. But I don't know if I was 5-ish going into 6. I definitely don't remember being 4 years old. And I remember a glimpse of being 5-ish from Florida, and then that was it. So I hear these stories, and it's like, it sounds like a familiar type of a story. Not that I'm crippled, but I am, because I can't actually do what it is that that I know that the Father in heaven is He's gonna give that glory at some point. But I also know that the Lord says, I am the Lord and I share my glory with nobody. However, this ties back to praying out loud and why Jesus, what the controversy of Jesus praying out loud. If he's God, why is he praying out loud? Why is he praying out loud so people can hear him? I mean, maybe because he had always thought to God, and then once there was a platform for him to be able to speak louder, he probably just wanted to let the people know that he's not claiming to be God. Although people are saying that he is, just like he never said that, he never actually said, I am king, like Stephen James DeShawn did, and said, deal with it, whether you believe it or not. He said, thou saidest. I didn't say I was king. Jethro said, I think I'm going to be a king in heaven. And you know what? He might as well be. I don't know. But this guy, he's so fucking sure that he's safe. That's another problem I have with Robin. To make a long story short, because I don't have much time in my life, because I do waste a lot of it by working for a living. But every day I'm sitting at the king's table, having meals with King David. Every day it's like I'm there, even though Mr. Zebag, Zebel, I don't know his name, but that guy, does he say it in here? He's talking about the adoption. This guy's talking about adoption with his son. Mephibosheth would eat at the table like one of the sons, as he's talking about adoption. So in other words, Mephibosheth was adopted, but yet he was eating at the king's table. But in the beginning, the first 5 years of his life, just like Kim Jean was talking about yesterday, he doesn't remember living in the king's palace. He doesn't remember climbing up the trees. He doesn't remember how he was so athletic and energetic, and it's like, man, this kid's gonna be a great baseball player or football player. He doesn't remember the first 5 years of his life living, being raised up by the king. So I wonder sometimes, is that is Mephibosheth, does he represent Christ? Because the story is that he either rode in on a donkey or he was going to, and then Z-Bag lied about him, and I don't know, said he was like a heretic or a hypocrite or a blasphemous or whatever. And then it's the same, and then I think he didn't give him the donkey to ride on because his legs were crippled. That doesn't mean he's crippled. It means his position, like my position right now, I am crippled. I can say all the stuff I want. I can't do anything about it until the King gives me the authority to do so. Until the Father in heaven gives glory down here on earth to the words before the foundation of the earth. Because when Christ was praying to his Father in heaven, do you think he actually knew who he was? Do you think he saw his face ever? Or do you think it's just he knew that he had a Father in heaven that at some point would give glory to his name on earth? Because that's what I think. So again, these are just my thoughts. I read scripture, I listen to scripture, I hear people interpret things, and then I think of my own life, and then I say, well, if that was me, well, then this is what I would be doing and saying. If I was Jesus, this is what I would do and say. If I was God, this is what I would do and say for my son Jesus. If I was the devil, this is what I would do and say. You know, your adversary. If I was your adversary, this is what I would do and say. So Christ rode in on a donkey. Was that because his legs were crippled? No, because none of his legs or bones have been broken. Well, Mephibosheth, it seemed like his legs were broken. No, he was just crippled and lame. He just couldn't, he had no authority. Let's just put it that way. Being crippled in the legs means Mephibosheth could run perfectly fine. He just was crippled with his authority. Because he didn't care about anything except for, in the end, he cared that King David made it back safely. That's what he cared about. So he said, you know what? You can give Stephen James to Sean all the stuff in the world. What do I care? Because he was, he was the one lying, or equivalent to him lying about me. So I can only go by the stories. I don't remember Jonathan Kleck lying about me because he never actually dropped my name and really said anything bad. He just said, well, number one, he said, I am sorry, Robin Hood. Then he said, and all you shills, you're in for deep, 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 deep trouble. And he called me a nerd in a very loving manner. So Stephen James is the one that did a continuously lying, continuously slandered, continuous, and it seems like he was first in line to receive everything that was mine from birth, because I was just seems like at the age of 5, because the people know you're not going to remember anything until you're about 5 years old. So when is it time to drop you off? Around 5. When is it time to drop you? That way you become crippled and live down here and completely neglected for the rest of your time until you wake up and realize, oh wait, all that stuff is mine. I just have to claim it. But then you know what? Who's in line? Is it Stephen James? Is it Jonathan Kleck? if Stephen James is in line to get everything, like the earth, to receive all the power, well, go ahead, give it to him. Was it mine in the beginning? Well, in Fantasyland, it was mine, thinking that I was adopted and grafted in. I mean, I don't have a baby picture from the hospital. That's kind of like a red flag. One of the pictures my mom has, I'm grafted in. That's pretty funny. And I have this really big hand holding me as a baby. It looks like it only has 3 fingers, but it's supposedly my mom's hand. I don't believe anybody would actually tell me that, because it's not like, sometimes people are adopted and at some point they tell the kid, but this is different. This is way different, because what I'm going through and revealing is way different than just any ordinary kid walking through the art museum and all of a sudden the 8 songs from before the foundations of the world are lining up with my exact footage. There's a problem here, because that means there's some type of royal bloodline that comes from me that has been kept secret, and I am the one that figured it out. Yes, I had a little bit of help from King Johnny, sitting at his table every day, eating the bread, drinking the wine, and basically it's like I'm a dead dog, like my dog Bowie. That's all I really am down here. Who am I down here? Nobody, nothing. I get disrespected all the time, day in and day out. At any given point in time, Agent Smith can tap into Joe Schmo, and Joe Schmo becomes Agent Smith and does an unnecessary waste of life gang stalking tactic just to cut me off, get my way, stall me up, whatever, mirror me. So what a similar story, Mephibosheth. I'm not saying that that's who I am. That's one of the first times I heard of it. But it's like, wow, that's, because number one, I would have to have been adopted by my family now, which could be the cousins of my actual father, who is alive. My father, he is alive. Jacob, Israel. I was left in a pit because my brothers that loved me so much, they couldn't stand the fact that I said that at some point you're all going to bow down, and it's not because I want you to worship me, it's because the Father in heaven is who you're gonna respect. That's who you're gonna respect. You're not going to respect me until you respect the Father. Once you respect the Father, well, then you're going to respect me, because who do you think sent me here? It's all in spirit. I don't know anybody. So it's the same thing when Christ prays to his Father in heaven, and people are like, well, if you're God, what are you praying out loud for? Well, he never claimed to be God, did he? Maybe the works that he did proved that God is working through him. Just like the art museum. You can say Satan's working through me if you want. Isn't he the God of the world? Either way, he's second in charge next to the sheriff. So, no matter what, even if I'm casting out devils, in the name of Beelzebub, the prince of the devils. If you're the prince, if Jonathan Kleck is the prince of the devils, or even Stephen James is the prince of the devils, because it started with him, it's just, I'm finishing it with Jonathan Kleck. There's been more miraculous things happening with Jonathan Kleck and the X-App and myself, clearly. And if you don't like it, go yourself. Go yourself and find out. That's why they're always trying to trap Jesus. Poor guy. I bet you he couldn't wait to get to that cross and die. That way the Father can bring glory to his name. And then that way, once they bring glory, once the Father sends his glory to his Son, then the Son can direct all traffic right back to the same Father who gave his glory to the Son, because he knew it would be reciprocated. Why do you think God said, I don't share my glory with anybody? Because nobody's going to give it back to him. The Son will give it back to him. That way, it's like they're all one and the same. Is there a Father in heaven? Well, there's a physical person that's in charge of the planet that's higher up than the planet that's lower below us. And then there's a God in heaven that nobody will ever see. You'll never, ever, ever meet that God unless you know his Son. You have to know his Son in order to see God face to face, because he declares his name. That's why. You can't, how can you possibly be God, the eternal God, living on earth when all this stuff is going on and you're just a human being? Well, because Christ was God in the flesh, manifested in the flesh. The Spirit of God is in spirit. Has nothing to do with your flesh. Flesh is completely sinful from birth. The Spirit of God has always been, always will be. So, from the beginning of the foundations of the world, that's what Christ was asking for God, his Father, to do, is to give him his glory like they had before the foundations of the world. Before the foundations of the world began, they had that with each other. So what he was asking was, at that time, give him his glory so he can give it back to him, so the Father can be glorified. So Mephibosheth is a picture of Christ. I would conclude that. It's another story of Jesus himself, what he went through as a lame duck, as a crippled, looked down upon, shameful man. What's the name of God? Yahuwah? Yeshua, Yahamalak, Yahweh, Yahweh, Have, Shave, Mave, Quave, Shmave. I could care less about the names, because the fact is, his name is God, and he's a spirit, and before anybody was created, He was, is, and always will be, and that's the God. It's in spirit. That's his name, God. If you call any other person God, why do you have to differentiate the name of God besides God? If you're calling anybody else God on earth, well, they're not. The God of the gang stall king, well, he blocks roads. He stalls you in any which possible direction that he possibly can. It's just a way of confusing people. I think, like, that guy there wasn't even talking. He's just part of getting a glimpse of Robin, the most interesting man on the planet, apparently, to all the gang stalkers. Although they don't treat me like I'm interesting, they treat me with disrespect. They pull to the side, they cut roads off, they make you squeeze through, they open doors right at the perfect time. That way when you drive by, it's a squeeze by. Now, they could have done that 10 seconds ago or 10 seconds later, but they did it at the exact seconds that they needed to. So when you're trying to say the name of God, it's more like confusion. Here, let me confuse everybody as to the name. Well, wait a minute, I thought, before I joined YouTube, I hear all these names, I'm like, what the hell are you all talking about? God's name is God. What do you mean? Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah. His name's God. Satan is also the God of the earth. So let's just say the God of the earth and then the God of the heaven. If you want to differentiate the two gods, my God, why have both of you forsaken me? Because one of them is in control of the good and the other one's in control of the bad. Are they the same in one? Is God good all the time? Is Satan bad all the time? Well, Satan's your adversary, so there's that. There's Phibs, just so you know.